every time we top our following episodes, and this week we have the city of Fayetteville, Arkansas. We actually have Les McGaugh in here to tell us more about the city and how we can navigate the procurement process and what opportunities are available for small businesses with the city. So Les, thank you for joining us.
Yes, ma'am.
So, just before we get into anything, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? How did you get into this space? Like, just tell us about yourself.
So actually I started in the private sector as a in procurement. I started out going to school all day out of after the Marine Corps, and then I worked second shift as a supervisor. So my days were extraordinarily long. You're looking at 20-hour days.
Wow.
And when I finally graduated college, the company I worked for said, "You're not an engineer, so the only job we have in the front office that requires a degree is a buyer. But it's 8 to 5 with a 1 hour lunch." And I said, "Yep, sign me up." So I went and did that, and that's how I got into the procurement side. And then I applied for this job at the city for benefits,
Okay.
government benefits, and that's how I got into public procurement. Um, and I've been with the city 8 years now. Um,
Nice.
and I really enjoy the space, the community, uh, the public procurement community, because it is large.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that you were in the Marine Corps.
Yep.
So I was in the Navy as well. So thank you so much for your service.
Thank you. You drove us
Absolutely.
around.
Absolutely, we did. But I'm really excited to kind of hear that. Well, hear the transition from where you started, and then really getting out and figuring out what was next, deciding to take that opportunity to go to school, and then falling into procurement. To be honest with you, because that wasn't the plan all along.
Most people do. Most people that are in procurement fall into it somehow.
Yeah.
Usually no one goes in, and if they do, it's going to be a supply chain major,
Okay.
um, and or some kind of logistics. But it is generally from getting the product from point A to point
Yeah.
B, not necessarily procuring the product.
Mm,
Um, and
got
it's not just commodities, it's services as well. So it's
Okay.
it's very interesting. But I was infantry in the Marine Corps, '02 to '07.
Okay.
Just an old jarhead, ground pounder.
To the
Uh,
fullest.
and I had the GI Bill. My wife wouldn't let it go to waste, so she forced me to
Mhm.
go to school. Um,
Yes, yes, for all the wives out there. That's a big deal.
yes, yeah,
Yes.
she pushed me to be better always. She still does.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's just I fell into procurement. And I love it. It's a
Mhm.
very fulfilling role, and it's kind of like a guardian of taxpayer dollars, So from a service aspect, getting out of the service, the Marine Corps, and trying to find something, dealing with some mental
Mhm.
issues or whatever, and trying to find something that gives you purpose.
Absolutely.
I
Oh
think
my
public
God.
procurement gives me purpose, like to be a ethical umbrella or a, a safeguard for taxpayer dollars per se.
Really nice. So, I guess it was a symbiotic transition, right?
It was.
So that's really nice. And so thinking about that, so also you did procurement from a corporate standpoint, and now you're in the public sector. Um, First, can you tell us about your role at the city? And then I would love to hear that contrast between like the private and the public sector, if you will.
Yeah, so I'm the procurement director for the City of Fayetteville. So we handle all the POs, P card approvals, um, titles, and official documents. We oversee the formal procurement process. So
Okay.
bids, RFPs, RFQs type thing. Um, and we are also the city's risk managers and contract administrators.
Nice.
So if you have a contract with the city, um, you may have a project manager from the city side that acts like that contract manager and deals with you day to day. But if there are issues with the contract where some kind of conflict arises, we are the mediators or the conflict resolvers. Whether it's on the contractor side or the city side.
Nice.
You know, so if the contractor reaches out to us and says, hey, we're not getting paid in a timely manner, then we will go and talk with the departments
Wow. Okay.
and have them submit or remit payment in a more timely fashion.
Nice.
And then if the department reaches out and says, hey, we're having these issues with this contractor, then we'll go in and mediate and resolve and deal with the contractor and say, what's going on? Is there not clear communication? Have they had project manager turnover? Did you have turnover within your entity? And try to resolve some of those conflicts and some kind of issue. And then if it's a truly a performance issue, then we'll try to come up with some kind of performance improvement plan, maybe clear up some communication issues, and give that contractor a chance. And that's a big difference than the private sector. You know, when I was in the private sector, it was, I don't like you, I'm gonna go with someone else.
Okay.
You know,
Prerogative.
The public sector, it's different. It's not the company's money, it's taxpayer dollars. So you've got to try to come up with some kind of performance improvement plan or mediate and negotiate and try to figure out how to resolve those conflicts and increase whether it's, our people monitoring pay requests or pay apps to get you paid, or it's getting you to send us invoices in a timely fashion. Not like give us the invoice today that it's due, or change or maybe renegotiating or amending a contract to make it, net 30 instead of net 10, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So there's usually a lot you can do to fix a problem rather than just, take it out on the vendor or have the vendor take it out on the city.
And that's just a
So-
matter of communication. So, and it seems it's more of an advocacy role as well, because you're assisting with making sure that they're getting paid in a timely fashion. Like, that is always a complaint with suppliers sometimes about working with government.
Yeah, and so generally, if say you sell some kind of product or play equipment or uniform items or something, and you're having issues with a department head or a project manager, then you might want to reach out to, or you feel like you're beating your head against the wall, reach out to that procurement department or procurement team and see if they can help advocate for you. Because that's really what we are. It's true. It's a good point. We are advocates to both the city and to the contractors. We're the Switzerland, the neutral zone.
Nice.
So
And so with that in mind, I really would love to kind of shift gears and talk a little bit about procurement now. So thinking about in the aspect, you mentioned that you typically would assist with, if, to help payments, like help remit payments. How does that operate? Or how does procurement work within the city of Fayetteville? Is like,
okay.
Okay.
So I'll start with every city's different.
Okay.
Or every government entity. So you have counties, states, schools, cities. Then you have a lot of other government entities that are not necessarily the city, but might be made upon the city, like a public facilities board or some kind of public utility. And they're all going to operate differently. Now, with the city specifically, we are a decentralized procurement process, which means that the individual departments and their finance analysts or people are the ones actually doing the transactions or the point of contact. We simply approve the expenditure or give the authority to purchase to the individual department.
Got it. Okay.
So if we have our thresholds, So one example would be like if it's under $5,000, the individual does not need quotes.
Got it. So this is just an individual quoter can win a opportunity of $5,000 with
Yep.
any of the departments that make up the city.
Correct.
Okay.
And so the other interesting thing about thresholds is the way that we look at thresholds is related or individual spend with a single firm. So say you sell every month at $1,000 a month, you don't get to fly under the threshold because we're looking at you're spending roughly $12,000 a year.
That's true.
So we want you to get quotes because we know that you're doing this every month. So we're going to make them get quotes, at least 3 quotes. Sometimes those can be no quotes. So maybe they reach out to 3 firms that are capable. We're going to make them get 3 quotes. A lot of times the quotes can be awarded based off of price and availability.
Okay.
Right. So say you offer a product that we need that's cheaper than someone else, but you have a 12 or 16-week lead time, then that's justification for us to not go with a low quote. Because we are a public entity, we have services that are vital that we provide to the citizens. So sometimes speed is necessary.
Okay.
So
And that's when you would need 3 quotes. So the first one, for the 5,000, that micro purchase, is that strictly on P card
no,
or?
it's across the board.
Okay.
P card, POs, check. And then
What does it need to be to go to full and open? Like when it's advertised? What is that?
that is, so there's actually 2 thresholds for that.
Okay.
All commodities and services are generally 35,000 for us to do a formal competitive solicitation. Unless it is a public improvement,
Okay.
which is generally those are capital items that are for the replacement, maintenance, or repair or upgrade of an existing facility.
Okay.
So road work, remodels, roof replacement, flooring, anything that we're doing to our existing facilities that is a repair, maintenance, or upgrade
Okay.
is considered a public improvement. And that threshold is 50,000.
Got it. Okay. Nice. So 50,000 for public improvement. Any space.
Yep.
Any location. Nice. Okay.
And that is a Arkansas state law that allows for that, but each entity can be that or more restrictive. So some may have $1,000 threshold and a $5,000 competitive solicitation, or a 10 or a 20, 25. It can vary by entity because they can't exceed that, but they can be more restrictive.
Got it. Okay. Okay. I like that. And in terms of so knowing that it's decentralized, how many departments make up the city?
Roughly 31.
31 departments. Okay. That's a pretty good amount of opportunity.
So yeah, I mean, so essentially we have, I'll say that's divisions.
Okay.
Which all have their own budget. So, an example would be take transportation. Within transportation, you have sidewalk, right-of-way, drainage, and roadways. So like pavement, asphalt.
Got it. Okay.
Right-of-way is like your mowing crews. And then like within parks, you have arts and culture. You have parks maintenance, you have recreation, and then you have park planning. So each of those is going to have different functions, and they also have their own separate budget.
Got it. Will all of the budgets typically be around the same, or is it?
It varies.
Okay.
Um,
Department, division.
yep. And
Got it.
so, the other thing though that might change a procurement threshold is where the money's coming from.
Okay.
So say our fire department is spending money and they're using a FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant. FEMA in their grant will dictate the thresholds and what our procurement process is.
Got it.
So sometimes you have those one-off where maybe it's ARPA funds, maybe it coming up, you're gonna have these regulations for the Inflation Reduction Act. You're gonna
Okay.
have the American Infrastructure Act.
Nice.
All of those are gonna have their own procurement process dictated by federal guidelines.
From the federal. Okay. So
So
typically when that money comes down, you can't add like you can't be more restrictive for those because the dollars are attached to it. Is that okay?
yep.
Got it.
So
Okay.
it gets very intricate, and usually if it's a formal solicitation,
Mhm.
we will put that information in the advertisement.
Okay. Got it.
Um,
Now, I do have a question from someone in the audience, and
okay.
they're asking which department is in charge of agriculture?
So I would ask them to define,
Agriculture a little bit more. Okay.
well,
Yeah.
what the intent of the agriculture is. So if it's if it's um hay baling or baling hay on our parks, then that's going to be parks.
Got it.
If it's going to be the commercial agricultural operation that we have out on the wastewater treatment plant,
Okay.
then that's going to be wastewater.
Okay.
Um, if it's um, mini gardens at our senior center, then that's going to be
Nice.
community resources.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Um,
Okay.
so there's going to be different variations of what agriculture are. So I guess it's what's the sense of the term in which they're using it.
Got it. Okay. Perfect. No, I think you gave some three great examples to now really just figure it out. They probably end up reaching out to you to ask them additional question or give you more
Absolutely.
context for sure. Okay, so when it comes down to the actual procurement process, so even well, bearing in mind now we're at a space to where it's full and open. What does that look like?
You mean that we've solicited something?
Yes, like where could we find the solicitation? Do we need to register the whole like the full process for that?
Okay, so say you look in the newspaper or you Google search and you see that we have a bid open, or maybe it's an RFP. You can find that on our Ion Wave bid portal. We do an
Okay,
electronic bid portal.
nice.
They can get on there, create a login and register as a vendor, and it'll ask all the relevant questions. And then the deadlines are always hard deadlines.
Okay.
So if they submit a proposal on Ion Wave for competitive solicitation, no one can see that until after the deadline. They're
Okay.
sealed, and we don't even have visibility until after the deadline.
Okay.
So they submit it and it's still 100% confidential. They submit it, and then after the deadline, if it's a bid, we'll do a public bid opening. We live stream those on YouTube,
Oh wow.
and we'll read out the bids. Then we'll go through all the submittals and make sure that they're all compliant for a responsive, responsible bidder.
Okay.
So if it's a construction contract, we require an Arkansas contractor's license and a bid bond, usually 5%. And then also that they bid on all the line items.
Okay.
Sometimes we don't require them to bid on all line items, just some. and then we can award by line item or we can award by vendor.
Right. And there was something that you also had on the website that I'm such a fan of, but it's over on the procurement side, there's a bids tabulation piece where you can see the historical opportunities. I think that's such like a key, like it's a key resource for businesses or small businesses to be able to see what's actually happening, how, you know, other contractors are doing it. Like a way to learn and kind of navigate that space, but to also just see that historical, you know, context of, I love it. I thought I wanted to mention that because I definitely was looking at that on the website.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah,
We really like Ion Wave. It's worked out well for us.
good. Okay. And if you are registered in Ion Wave, are you automatically registered with the city, or is there a different process for the registration? Okay, got it. Nice. Okay, so for small businesses, are there any programs that are available in terms of, you know, a small business, local business, minority, women, veteran? Are there any of those style programs or preferences for small businesses within the city?
We don't currently have any preferences.
Okay.
And so we do like to try to shop local.
Okay.
But one of the things that we usually try to do is those federal dollars are usually tied with some kind of DBE requirement.
Absolutely.
And so the way that the state of Arkansas works is they have a DBE certification process.
Okay.
And I think everyone's probably familiar already with DBE, but it's disadvantaged business enterprise. I think Texas calls it a hub or a historically underutilized business. So there's a certification process through the Arkansas Economic Development that you could go through. And then with that, whenever you submit on any of those, you can submit your DBE certification.
Got it. So what I typically do, I grab the links as we're going through stuff. So you'll see me tapping for a while, but everyone who's listening to this episode, if you're listening to it on, you know, Apple, Spotify, any of the podcasting mediums, if you go to YouTube, all of the links to everything that Les is mentioning is already in the chat. So you can go ahead and click on those and check those out. Now, I do appreciate you sharing that that information about those programs. Now, thinking, you know, deeper, if there aren't any preference style programs, how can a small business market to the city, market their services to the city? What's the best way? Okay.
So the best way is align with the department what product or service you provide,
Okay.
and then reach out to that department, whoever serves that function. I don't know. Can anyone watching give an example of some product that they sell?
That's a good question. If you have a product or service that you sell and you're interested to see which division or department within the city utilizes or needs the services that you provide, definitely drop that in the chat. Let us know. That'll be really good. Because even thinking about the agriculture piece, when you mentioned those 3 different areas, I was pretty stumped. I was like, oh, wow. I had no idea that it was, you know, broken down into multiple different spaces. I immediately just go to parks and recreation. It's outside. Like,
Then you also have like trees. We have an urban forestry department
okay.
that takes care of the trees and plants along our right of ways and in the city streets and downtown. You know, and then Parks and Rec and our transportation departments are going to be buying grass seed, fertilizer, chemicals for weed control, all kinds of things.
And
So,
someone mentioned they have their company leases and rents heavy equipment vehicles.
okay, yeah. So one example of that, 3 places that you could reach out. So for like personnel lifts, or like you know, like kind of like Skytrack kind of things, or like Genie booms and lifts. We do Lights of the Ozarks every year, where we put up over 1 million Christmas lights around our square. That's our Parks and Rec.
Okay.
Sometimes they rent that equipment. Our maintenance team, so facilities, it is probably going to get some GD booms. Our fleet department, you can go through them for rental. But most of the time when it comes to rental equipment, it's gonna be individual departments,
Okay.
which is gonna be, so say, our grade all's down and we need to rent a grade all for our transportation to clear out ditches. You do that. Our water and sewer, sometimes they rent equipment, because they don't have enough on hand. Maybe they'll rent a dozer
Okay.
or, a skid steer with a forestry mulcher attachment to clear right of ways. Maybe we're gonna rent an F-550 with a boom on it to do, change out lights, traffic lights.
Nice.
Sometimes we'll rent graders. So usually we'll do some kind of internal assessment on larger pieces of equipment. If it's gonna be rarely used, maybe once a year or once every couple years, we will not buy one and we'll rent it.
Okay.
The other thing that we rent a lot, is generators. So say we have a generator down and we need a backup generator at a lift station while one gets repaired. We have to have generators at all our lift stations as backup in case electric goes out. So, generators, skid steers, backhoes sometime,
We have
maybe
a
parts needs
transportation
immediate.
company as well.
Do what?
Transportation, someone mentioned personnel transportation. They have a transportation company moving people.
Well, we don't,
Okay.
but, sometimes, we do help the Ozark Regional Transit and Razorback Transit, but they are their own separate public entities.
Okay.
That could use supplement sometimes. But the city does not provide public transportation.
Okay. We have facilities management or facilities maintenance.
So we do our facilities maintenance in-house.
Okay.
But we generally supplement that with, temporary workers.
Okay. Got it. Someone does interior design work.
Yeah, so, that would be our facilities.
Okay.
We do bond construction and rehab. They're generally over all the remodels.
Okay.
Um,
So yeah, that would be a part of that in that remodel deal. What for that one, someone said anything about any software renewals?
yeah, so interesting thing with software. Software is required to be procured through our procurement process with the thresholds and quotes and everything,
Okay.
at the initial procurement.
Got it.
Any renewals or additional licenses are exempt.
Got it. Okay. So you have to be there. It has to be either a new requirement in order for someone to be able to provide it, or that initial contract is always going to be with that contractor.
Well, until we're not happy, then we'll go out and re-quote it.
Got it. Okay.
A typical example would be like an ERP. We don't use any MRP, but ERP software, or asset management softwares. We do that on a when we're not happy with the
Okay.
software anymore. And you could
Time to
probably go
move
out there and
on.
say, here's all of the functions that our software provides. When you're no longer happy, be happy to have a shot.
Got
Because
it.
most of the time, those are so large and substantial that we put those out, they'll be competitively solicited.
Absolutely. I have a few more. You opened up that door. But back to the agriculture for horses, cows, and soil. Being able to procure that stuff. Do you necessarily?
So horses and cows, we don't do. That would be the university.
Okay. Nice.
So, I would encourage them to reach out to the Pauline Whitaker Center with the University of Arkansas.
Okay.
That's our equine studies program.
Okay.
But
Okay. I have some other ones as well. So social media, public relations, video production services.
So we actually have a media services department.
Okay.
So, and a communications department. So our communications, we have staff that monitors and takes care of our social media
Okay.
and then doing our public releases.
Okay.
But we have a media services department that also does all of our public television and
Nice.
does our YouTube channel.
Got it. Okay. So you
Um,
pretty typically have most of that stuff in-house. Do they ever really go outside for any of it?
Not for the services itself,
Okay.
but for products, yes.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
And then events, event management.
Um, so that would be Experience Fayetteville. It is a sub entity of us that we don't control. They're on their own,
Okay.
but they do our event management.
Okay.
They lease the town center and generally do a lot of those event management system or processes, you
Got
know.
it. Nice. See a lot of outdoor experiences on here, so that's pretty cool. I dropped the link in the chat so anyone looking to kind of navigate that space a little bit more. So
And
I'm
so
really
that
oh
that last question though, for the event management,
yes.
um, they might reach out to our Parks and Rec because we have a couple international events at the city
Okay.
as far as like mountain biking.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
so large international cyclocross type championships. And then we do have some uh city to city, multi-city type
Gotcha.
events
Nice.
that the Parks and Rec puts on. So that might be a place that they could start.
Okay. Got you. So someone's asking about the media products. So what are some examples of media products that they made that the department may
Uh,
need?
cameras, microphones, green screen. Um, uh, I don't know what you call it. It's like an eye that goes in the middle of like a conference table
Mm,
that you can Zoom as a committee
okay.
or do live stream type things that
Got
it
it.
picks up and camera and then it
The
auto
entire
switches.
room, right?
Yeah, it goes around the
Okay.
room and it auto switches to whoever's speaking.
Really?
But those type of things, we utilize those in a lot of our
Mhm.
newer spaces, and we're generally always renovating to try to be ahead of the curve as far as remote work and access to the public to view things.
Got you. Okay. I like that. In terms of you mentioned the remote work piece of it and thinking about that aspect of it, is there some component of, the products that include, laptops for working from home or you're issued like a laptop at the city?
Yeah, so I'm provided a laptop by the city.
Okay.
Um, and our IT department usually procures all that and puts us on some kind of replacement cycle.
Okay.
Um, and generally with those hardware type items, uh, most of the time we purchase off of a cooperative purchasing agreement. Um, and if anyone's interested in what a cooperative purchasing agreement is, I'd be happy to elaborate.
Yes, please. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, okay, so a cooperative purchasing agreement. Um, there's quite a few cooperatives out there, Sourcewell, Omnia Partners, TIPS, MPP Gov. Um, so basically what that does is they take a lead agency. So for example, say it might be the City of Fayetteville, say we're doing a competitive solicitation. Then that group will come in and say, hey, can we make yours a national contract? So they will add in the language into the competitive solicitation.
Okay.
And then the awarded vendor to that has now gotten that pricing nationwide.
Got you. Okay.
So they can sell to everyone else. So some of those examples would be like a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing agreement on maybe it's office products or convergence or like software or hardware. CPWG is usually who we buy a lot of our hardware from,
Okay.
and that is through a cooperative purchasing agreement.
Gotcha.
So generally what that does is it's gonna allow governments to pull together their collaborative spending power to purchase a higher quantity at a lower price.
Really? Okay. So you get the opportunity to collaborate and partner with the other cities to get the lower price, or is this price already set? Is it just based on the price that they got from another contract?
So generally it'd be like the price that they already get from another contract.
Okay.
One example would be, take Kubota, for example. I can go and I can buy something at Kubota, but the nationwide contracted price through Sourcewell is gonna have a set discount
Okay.
off MSRP.
Got it.
So sometimes though, that's not all, most of the time it's the cheapest.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not if they have something that we need already on the lot. Right, so say there's a local dealer that has a
That was a question.
baler that they purchased that's already on the lot. Then we could buy that cheaper than the Sourcewell contract. In
Okay.
order for us to get that, we'd have to put out a bid.
Even if you can, so yeah, because you can't go purchase it off the lot. So, and it has to be through another company to go and purchase off of that. Got you. Okay. Well, that's different. I thought maybe because of, having a fleet, you could just go and purchase it, because it's, different circumstances. However, still got to put it out. That's a good point to kind of throw out there. Okay. Well, final question. Is there any feedback or not even feedback? Is it any parting wisdom that you would like to leave with any of the businesses who are listening to this episode?
Yep, so the biggest piece of advice I can give to anyone submitting to a bid, submitting on a bid, is if almost all bids are written to a performance standard as far as the specifications.
Okay.
Right, so if you see on there that they're asking for product X when you sell product Y, right, by a brand name, that's generally used as some kind of performance measurement or a minimal performance standard. Still, don't be afraid to submit that. And if there are variations in the specifications with what you provide, don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, we can still meet and do the job that's intended to do, our product is intended to do, but instead of having a 17-gallon hydraulic tank, we have a 14-gallon hydraulic tank with an extra pump, right? So we're gonna perform better with less hydraulic fluid, so that's just an example of maybe you don't meet the spec as designed. Reach out and ask them to see, will this perform in the way that you intended to perform? And if so, will you issue an addendum which will allow me to submit a bid?
Absolutely. Okay. I like it. I like it.
Don't hesitate to ask questions on bids. Reach out, ask questions. And most of the time, like I said, when we're writing specs, it's an equal or as intended as a performance standard, right? So we've had this product, it worked for what we needed to do. Now we're going through the bid process and we need a new one. And so a lot of the time we're just mimicking what we had, which might have been 10-year-old technology, right? So we're now offering this product that will perform better, equal to or better,
And preview.
but the specs are a little bit different, and I intend to submit a bid. Will you amend the specifications so that I can?
And you're suggesting this happen in the beginning when this opportunity is just out on the market, like during that question phase.
Yeah, this, so most of the time, if you look on our bid portal and you look at the calendar of what that is, usually there's a deadline for questions. So it's just submit it before then. But anytime that it's open and you see it,
Okay,
submit those questions.
okay. There we go.
That's not just for us, but do that to any entity.
And now someone else had another question, and this is more of a, what do you enjoy the most about the work that you do?
Constant learning. That's probably my favorite part. The bids and contracts and services that come through always blow my mind. The things that we ask for, like we just put out one for trash collections within the streams,
Okay.
right? So propose to us how you're going to do that, like with certain populations that move and create camps. They leave this trash, and a lot of times with the heavy rains or whatever, it gets into the river. So how do we get up and clean these rivers or creeks with all this trash? So we put out an RFP for that, and learning how people do that with like little catchers that they go and inspect, kind of like, I'm an old country boy redneck, right? So like I like to go catch my own minnows when I go fishing, right? So it's kind of just like minnow traps, but they're collecting trash. Or different types of benefits brokerage services, or when we bid out pumps for our wastewater treatment plants, or just remodels. Having to learn that. Me and our purchasing agents, whenever we get a bid or whatever, we have to do intensive research on that and go out so that we make sure that every spec that we put out there to be bid on is fair and equitable, right? And so it's some way that people can be creative and submit. And it's not just like, hey, we want a Ford F-150. Like we want, instead of saying a Ford F-150, we want a 4-row crew cab half ton. So then you can have Toyota, Nissan, Honda, Dodge, Ford, Chevy, Isuzu, all put out and give us bids instead of it just being like one thing. Like we may put out what we had last time, but that's, like I said, that's intended to be a performance standard.
Absolutely.
Like instead of saying I want it to have a 5.0 engine, just say needs a tow capacity of 9,000 pounds.
Yeah.
So learning the different specs on everything, the track width of a Mini X, well, why does it matter the track width of the Mini X? Well, so it fits on the trailers we already got. Like why did you specifically put that measurement, asking the requesting department, why did you specifically put that measurement in there? Right? Well, like track widths can't be more than 81 inches wide. Well, why 81 inches? That doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah, we need an inch clearance on each side on an 83-inch trailer. Right. So that's why that spec's in there. So trying to make sure that we do the due diligence and research on every one of these specs on services or commodities or whatever it might be. It's constant learning. Like I've just learned so much. The interesting concept that we do have is the restoration of historical buildings.
Oh, nice. That is fun. That sounds fun. Okay.
We put out a bid for, it was like wood, but it was wood from the 1800s. So, because the historical structure that was being rehabbed in order to be stay on the registry, it had to have the same thing.
Mhm.
And so they ended up pulling logs out of a swamp down in Florida, which they then turned into lumber. But they were sunken wood that hadn't rotted.
Yeah.
So it just blew my mind. That's my favorite part is the constant learning. Like I tell everybody, we have our hands in everything in the city in purchasing. We don't have a grasp on anything. Right?
No
We are over
specialty.
a portion of the process to make sure that it's fair. It's a fair process. Everyone gets a shot, and that's kind of what our role is, like I said, it's taxpayer dollars.
Mhm.
And so whatever expense, everyone that has a business should have an equal and fair shot at earning those dollars.
Absolutely.
So that's my favorite part.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that. They mentioned the same thing. They was like, that's nice, like to hear the story. It was beautiful. They added beautiful on there. So thank you, Les. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and sharing this information. I'm sure business owners can see now that not only are you a wealth of information, but you are also an advocate for, businesses in just a whole understanding of the procurement process within itself. So thank you for that. And we'll be reaching back out to have you on the podcast again, probably in a year or two.
All
So
right.
yeah, definitely. Thank you, Les. You have a great day.
You too.
Everyone who's listening, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast. Share this video with any business in the area that are not in the area but are looking to move and do business in the area. Share this video, and we will see you on the next episode of the Government Coins podcast. All right. Peace.